Venezuela firmly and categorically rejects the U.S. designation of the non-existent Cartel de los Soles as a terrorist organization and the rehashing of a lie to justify intervention. This November 25th, peoples of Latin America commemorate the 9th anniversary of the passing of Cuban Revolution Commander-in-Chief Fidel Castro. In Palestine, almost 400 violations of the October 10th ceasefire have been reported in Gaza, while Israel continues to push past the agreed-upon yellow line. Hello, welcome from the South. I'm Luis Alberto Matos from the teleSUR studios in Havana, Cuba. We begin with the news. Venezuela rejects the designation of the non-existent Cartel de los Soles as a terrorist organization by the U.S. Department of State to justify an illegitimate and illegal intervention against the country. The Venezuelan government has confirmed that this is an attempt at regime change, reaffirming that the country's popular military and police forces will protect the peace and the highest interests of the Bolivarian revolution. The government also emphasized that the Venezuelan people are united and focused on national life. He added that these actions by the White House seek to divert attention from domestic issues and generate instability, and urged the U.S. administration to rectify what it considers to be an erratic policy of aggression. It also stated that these measures affect the development of Caribbean peoples and do not contribute to a genuine fight against the illicit drug trafficking. Venezuelan President Nicolás Maduro expressed his gratitude for international support in defense of the right to peace in Venezuela and throughout Latin America in the face of escalating imperialist aggression by the United States. During his television program Con Maduro Más, President Nicolás Maduro also thanked the thousands of Christian churches in the United States that have expressed their solidarity with Venezuela, defending its right to peace and rejecting Washington's imperialist aggressions. In this sense, he also applauded the resistance and commitment of the entire Venezuelan people who have succeeded in overcoming all the threats and aggressions of U.S. imperialism. Meanwhile, in Peru, negotiations between small-scale miners and Congress stalled after the legislative plenary postponed a crucial vote to extend their work permits. Nearly 1,000 informal mining workers traveled from various parts of the country to march in Lima, pressuring and demanding the extension of their permits to continue operating in certain mines. In response, Peruvian delegates discussed the possibility of extending a temporary permit until the end of 2027 and reinstating 50,000 miners who had previously been declared illegal. These permits for artisanal miners were last issued in 2016, and although they have been extended on several occasions, they require new approval by the plenary. And the Uruguayan Workers' Union presented a proposal for the creation of a specific tax on the wealth of the richest 1% of the country to be used for policies to combat child poverty. The tax targets approximately 25,000 people with assets exceeding $1 million. It's estimated that this surtax would raise over $22 million yearly, a figure equivalent to 1% of the gross domestic product. The Vice President of the Central, Carolina Spillman, explained that 17% of the country lives below the poverty line. Spillman added that the working class knows that inequality does not correct itself, but requires political courage, redistributive mechanisms, and real public investment that reaches the poorest households. And Brazilian President Luis Inácio Lula da Silva stated on Monday that his country will not be a mere exporter of critical minerals, but will seek to industrialize them to generate added value and strengthen its development. During a business forum in Mozambique, Lula emphasized the urgency for nations to define sovereign models for the exploitation of these resources, protecting the interests of developing countries. The Brazilian leader had already highlighted the importance of critical minerals such as lithium, nickel, cobalt, manganese, graphite, and rare earth elements during the G20 summit in Johannesburg, pointing out their fundamental role in the energy transition and technological sovereignty. Also on Monday, the National Electoral Council of Honduras continued with the transfer of the material that will be used in the general election scheduled for Sunday. Over 6.5 million citizens are called to the polls to elect the successor to President Fidel Castro in a process that will set the political course for the Central American country. The National Electoral Council emphasized that election materials are being distributed to the various departments and municipalities, ensuring that each polling station has the ballots, ballot boxes, and equipment necessary for voting. The elections will determine not only the new president, but also 3 presidential appointees, 298 mayors, 128 deputies to the National Congress, and 20 to the Central American Parliament. We now have a first break coming up. Remember, you can join us on TikTok at teleSUR English, where you'll find news in different formats, news updates, and much more. We're going to be right back. Stay with us. Welcome back. This November 25th marks the 9th anniversary of the physical disappearance of the historical leader of the Cuban Revolution, Fidel Castro Ruz, one of the greatest figures of the 20th century and the beginning of the 21st. Let's see.
It was his wish that no school, hospital, or public work be named after him, or he didn't want monuments in his honor. He did not want his figure to become an object of worship. This is how the island looked and felt in the first days after his death.
Very bad. My neighbor called me, Idalmis. Fidel died. I couldn't believe it. I've been crying and crying. I can't sleep. I'm on pills. Today I had to send for medication, but I feel terrible because we were born with this revolution.
Those who knew him say that he was not afraid of criticism, nor he was dogmatic. He felt most comfortable among the people.
The part of Fidel that we need to rescue for upcoming battles, in my opinion, is not his candor, his humanism, his sensitivity towards people. All of that is important, but that is not where we should be placing our emphasis, because the context that is approaching is much more complicated, the disputes are much more complex. It seems to me that the Fidel most needed for the times we are living in Cuba and in Latin America is the most subversive, most radical Fidel.
He once said that the revolution would be a difficult and dangerous undertaking. However, those who were close to him assure us that he never knew of fear. 9 years after his death, this is how he lives on in the imagination of Cuban children.
His personality, his culture. He is cultured, he is good, kind.
But you speak of Fidel in the present tense, as if he were still alive. Why?
Because even though he is dead, to us he never died. Even if you don't believe it, Fidel is always by our side teaching us, and we are always learning things about him, even though he is no longer alive, but he is morally in the hearts of all children.
En diciembre de 2011 ingresó al libro Guinness de los récords.
On December 2011, he entered the Guinness Book of World Records as the person who was most attempted to be assassinated. From 1959 to 2000, 638 times. He challenged no less than 10 U.S. presidents. They say he was a strategist like few others in the history of humanity. Hated by some and venerated by others. What many agree on is that he was an irremediable dreamer who was definitely victorious.
Fabiola López, teleSUR, La Habana.
In the United States, a line of severe storms in Harris County, Texas, damaged homes, cut power to thousands, and triggered tornado warnings Monday. Aerial footage from ABC 13 shows significant damage to a number of homes, along with scattered debris. The station said severe winds and an isolated tornado continued to be possible in the evening. Forecasters warn of flooding, rain, and the possibility of severe thunderstorm Monday from Texas to Arkansas and Louisiana into Mississippi. By Monday evening, more than 1,000 flights into and out of Dallas-Fort Worth International Airport were delayed and over 100 canceled, according to the flight tracking site FlightAware. And in Vietnam, floods leave over 40 people dead, thousands displaced, and serious damage to infrastructure and property in the south and center of the country. According to the latest report, 62,000 citizens were displaced and more than 52,000 homes were damaged. Rescue teams are working to locate 9 missing people. In addition to the landslides that caused the closure of several major roads and power outages affecting more than 1 million people. In the city of Nian Shuung, soldiers and rescuers transfer residents to safe areas while providing essential supplies, including drinking water and food, to those affected. The highly Gubi volcano located in northeast Ethiopia erupted for several hours for the first time in almost 12,000 years. The volcano, which spouted thick columns of smoke, is located about 800 kilometers northeast of Addis Ababa, the capital, leaving the nearby villages of Aftera covered in ash. The columns of smoke covered Yemen, Oman, India, and northern Pakistan. Authorities did not report any victims caused by the eruption. However, the eruption could have economic consequences for the livestock herders who live in the area. To date, the Afar authorities have not declared the number of people displaced. We have our second break coming up. Remember, we invite you to visit our Facebook page at teleSUR English. There you'll be able to watch our top stories, special live coverage, and much more. Follow our page and activate the notification button to stay up to date on the world's most recent events. A final break, don't go away. Welcome back. Israeli forces killed at least 4 Palestinians and wounded several others across Gaza despite a 6-week ceasefire that Israel has violated with near daily attacks. Israel violated the ceasefire agreement at least 393 times from October 10th to November 20th through the continuation of attacks by air, artillery, and direct fire. Israel shot at civilians 113 times, raided residential areas beyond the yellow line 17 times, bombed and shelled Gaza 174 times, and demolished people's properties on 85 occasions. Israel had also detained 35 Palestinians from Gaza over the past month. Monday attacks include artillery, air raids, and helicopter strikes reported in both northern and southern parts of the enclave. And Israeli settlers in the West Bank have shown alarming public support for extrajudicial killings, collective punishment, and the use of human shields by the Israelis, which violate international humanitarian law. According to a recent survey by the Israel Democracy Institute, 600 Jewish Israeli settlers reveal entrenched militaristic views amid the ongoing assault on Gaza and intensified aggression, ethnic cleansing, and forced displacement across the West Bank. The poll shows that 62% of Jewish Israeli settlers believe that Palestinian fighters should be killed, even if they pose no threat. Over 55% of respondents supported the use of heavy firepower on Palestinian population centers following rocket attacks, indicating broad public support for war crimes. And on Monday in the United Arab Emirates, U.S. Army Secretary Dan Driscoll met with Russian representatives to discuss the crisis in Ukraine. During the dialogue held in Abu Dhabi, Kremlin spokesman Dmitry Peskov emphasized that Russia is fully open to the negotiation process, as has been repeatedly confirmed by President Vladimir Putin. Negotiations will continue throughout the day. In this regard, Dan Driscoll stated that he plans to meet with the Russian delegation to discuss the peace process and accelerate negotiations. In this negotiating context, Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov stated at a press conference in Moscow that any revised peace plan for Ukraine must reflect the agreement reached by Putin and Trump at their summit in Alaska. Chinese President Xi Jinping held a telephone conversation with his U.S. counterpart Donald Trump, in which both highlighted the progress made since their meeting in Busan. Our correspondent Bruno Falsi is in the Chinese capital and has the details.
Hello, companions of teleSUR and the audience following us in this transmission. I am in Beijing now to report that Chinese President Xi Jinping held a telephone conversation with U.S. President Donald Trump on Monday evening. Xi recalled their meeting last month in Busan, South Korea, where the two leaders reached an important understanding that have allowed them to recalibrate the course of bilateral relations and send a positive message to the world. The President Xi emphasized that cooperation benefits both countries, while confrontation harms them, and that the vision of prospering together is a tangible and prospect. He added that they must move forward in the basis of equality and respect, expand cooperation and reduce problems, thereby generating benefits for both peoples and their international communities. In the issues of Taiwan, Xi reaffirmed that the reunification of the island is an integral part of the post-War II international order. Also recalled that both countries fought together against fascism and militarism. Trump, for his part, called him a great leader and said they fully agreed with his vision for the bilateral relationships. He acknowledged the importance of China's role in World War II and the significance of the Taiwan issue, and announced yesterday that he plans to visit China in April the next year, following Xi's invitation. The two leaders also discussed the crisis in Ukraine. Xi expressed China's support for all efforts to promote peace and stressed the need to the parties to narrow their difference, reach a fair, lasting peace and building agreements, and resolve the crisis at its root. With this news from here, Beijing, we return with you in La Habana, Cuba.
And 3 major Belgian unions called a coordinated national strike on Monday to protest government budget cuts. The work stoppages primarily affect rail and air services and have forced the cancellation of numerous flights at major airports. The protest is a direct response to the austerity measures proposed by the government, including the unpopular initiative to raise the legal retirement age. Transport unions are standing firm in their fight against the budget cuts, using the shutdown of key sectors to pressure the government to reconsider its economic policies. Airlines have been tasked with contacting affected passengers directly in the coming days to inform them of their options.
We are on strike for 3 days because they make a lot of economy in the railways. They like to have like 675 billion of euros of economy. So we're also against the fact that the pensions of the railway personnel is increasing, and we have to work harder and longer. So instead of going on pension on the age of 62, we have to stay till 65, 67 years old.
We have come to the end of this news brief. You can find these and many other stories on our website at telesurenglish.net. So join us on our social media, Facebook, X, Instagram, Telegram, and TikTok. For TeleSUR English, I'm Luis Alberto Matos. Thanks for watching.